Hey everybody, this is DeSci World, and we welcome PoSciDonDAO. We're going to talk about precision medicine. We're going to talk about funding personalized medicine, in particular, personalized medicinal research. And we're going to be passing over to Carlos right now, who's going to take the reins. So thank you, Carlos.
Thanks. Okay. So let me know about how your project started and how you sort of came about, like uh, Poseidon DAO.
Yeah, so I'm a scientist, and I did my bachelor's in biomedical sciences, and for my first internship, already you experience what's going on in science. Then with the master in oncology, I was very enthusiastic about science still, and I decided to do a PhD trajectory. And during this PC trajectory, you start to know a little bit more about the funding process, how to write reports, even grants, and how it just goes in science and not just as an intern.
Hmm.
So from that moment onwards, or like I'm now in my fourth year of my PhD trajectory,
Hmm.
and we experienced quite some. Yeah, what can I say, issues. Uh, yeah, so one of those issues is that a project that was initially funded by a charity did not get, or like the funding stopped because of a disagreement between the charity and my professor. And
Hmm.
from that moment onwards, we thought, well, maybe we can leverage blockchain technology and to try and prevent this from happening in the future. So it's more
Right.
of a pain point from our side that caused this. And then we had to check with our network to see if they experienced other issues like bias or maybe some personal vendettas, and
Hmm.
that could all impact funding. And yeah, we got quite a similar response in our survey. We
Right.
had like only 44 people, PhD students, postdocs, professors, that all came to a similar conclusion. That,
Right.
yeah.
And how long have you been working on this? And like what have you done so far? Like from that insight or data to until now? Like how? Tell me a bit about that.
Yeah, so we started with Poseidon DAO in April. The idea actually was I already had that 3 years ago, but
Hmm.
my issue was that I could not code.
Right.
So I found someone, a senior developer, that was kind enough to guide me for a year and a half
Hmm.
and train me. With that knowledge, I was able to write my first smart contract. And when I was confident enough to do that, I said to my co-founder, like, let's work this idea out, and
Hmm.
that's how Poseidon DAO came to be.
That's really cool. And especially what I really like about this space is how you can sort of organize yourself around an idea or a goal, and sort of you have this platform where you can pivot a little bit within the scope of what you're doing, right? And as more tech comes online, I think that these tools are only going to get easier, especially for people who can code, right? So I'm really happy to hear that story because it's very similar to it's actually I resonate with that a lot because I was also doing science, publishing, and then with a group of researchers. But kind of like the question that popped into my mind is, and let's delve into this a little bit before we go into more into the details about Poseidon. We all sort of agree that there's a lot of bad things about science and like the way science is structured right now, correct? But I think that we could also think about a little bit more about what are the good parts or like what are the good parts of science in one hand, and in the other, like what's the ideal version of science, right? In order to, because like I'm sort of like a designer, right? And like I like to design incentives. I like to think, what's the best case scenario that I want to create, right? And I would like to ask you that, right? What's the best case scenario for science, and what are the parts of science as it currently exists that you actually like?
Yeah, good question. So, well, the first part is, so what do I think would be like the perfect situation?
Hmm.
Of course, that would mainly consist of decentralized, or like at least democratized decision making in who gets what funding. So
Hmm.
that's one aspect, so that we remove a lot of the bias, a lot of the if you know someone that has a laboratory and you are part of a committee of a charity, or a foundation, or any other instance that gives out money, that you don't
Hmm.
have any bias towards that uh, specific research group.
Right.
So that would be one aspect. Yeah, that at least that is the main idea for Poseidon DAO, that we would at
Hmm.
least have more people have a say in where the money goes.
Right.
And the second thing would be to streamline the funding process. So
Hmm.
now, often the case is that a small percentage of the money raised for a good cause, like cancer research as an example, a lot of money is,
Gets wasted. Yeah.
yes, or lost because
Hmm.
of many middlemen.
Right.
So, and in our perfect situation would be, of course, to go directly from the funders to the scientists, and
Hmm.
then use or leverage the blockchain technology as a, like an accountant for that
Right.
transaction. So that would,
Actually,
yeah.
I actually see a lot of value in what you're saying, because like I've been doing AI stuff for a long time, and I had this feeling for a while that the only way that you could really like make a name for yourself in that space is if you join some big corporation and sort of like sold them your knowledge, right? That like your know-how, so that they could generate these like large scale models. But I see a lot of value in systems like Poseidon to think about how can you fund the individual researcher or the group of researchers, like a small group, or even people who you wouldn't have thought of as researchers, but can solve problems for you, right? And I think a lot of work can be done in things like pre-approved grants and using reputation, sort of like to identify people who can access pre-approved funding if they so desire, right?
Yeah, that's a very interesting concept. Can you elaborate more on how you see that reputation system?
Yeah, I mean, for example, in this world, what we're trying to do is to create these research communities, right? And Poseidon DAO could be one of those, in the sense that you have a very specific goal in mind, which is further precision medicine. And we, by creating like a shared knowledge base, you can sort of create, you can call them quests for people that you want to sort of, for example, gather data, right? So if you have a structured way to gather data and track those contributions, then you could like sort of onboard participation from a lot more people and have them feel ownership of the outputs.
Hmm.
So the role of Poseidon is to go and say, okay, this is what we want, and those who want this can join and help us coordinate around that idea. And other communities such as DeSci World or Nerds or like specialized communities who have a specific set of skill sets can interact with you guys at a DAO to DAO level so that you can sort of like in a decentralized manner, acquire all the services that you require to reach your goal, right?
Yeah, yeah, I fully agree. That sounds like a also a part of that ideal, right? The more decentralized we can also make the collaborations and help or everyone that can contribute to these DAOs. That yeah, that would be fantastic if we could achieve that. And I think something that is very important also for me from a technical point of view is to really aim for the on-chain governance.
Right.
That is quite a challenging thing to establish because
Mm-hmm.
you want to have proposals, you want to have participation, and if
Right.
the fees are too high of the blockchain, then the gas fees are too high, then you will have less participation. So
Right.
there's this fine balance that you need to find. So I
Yeah.
personally think that
Mm-hmm.
on-chain governance on Ethereum, unless you have very wealthy people, they're not
Mm-hmm.
gonna have 4 or 5 proposals to vote on if the gas
Right.
fees are so high. So yeah,
Yeah, I see your point, and that's sort of like one of the main things that I think is important is to understand that a lot of a lot of us are having the same sort of problems, and the one of the things about on-chain infrastructure, specifically infrastructure, is that once it's deployed for one use, if it's deployed as infrastructure, it can be used for anything. So, for example, a great example is Uniswap, right? Where Uniswap is they can deploy pools, so anyone can use that as you would use a component in software, saying, now this is a feature every app can have, right? Um, in the same way, there's a lot of governance stacks fully built out that you can explore. And DeSci World just recently announced partnership with Ethereum, which is like for us is solving a lot of issues because there's a modularity aspect to it where individual groups of people can like there's a lot of nuance which is beyond like what's the point, but the idea is that like I would like to have a future where you can just focus on the larger goal of PoSciDonDAO, which is to further precision medicine and fund research about precision medicine, and let the infrastructure that has already been built serve as the foundation for your products. And in thinking in this modular based approach, there's a lot of less work that you have to do in order to reach the state that you want to get to. Does that make sense?
yeah, I understand. Yeah, so we we uh, we thought about using those pre-existing infrastructures of on-chain governance, but
Mm-hmm.
we did want to make our own or like give our own twist to those infrastructures. So we kind of started to build that from scratch actually. So
Right.
one of the to come back also to your first question, what have we achieved so far?
Mm-hmm.
So as I said, we started in April with this idea. March, April, we wrote our white paper. We
Mm-hmm.
we established a legal entity, which was a
Mm-hmm.
bit of a challenge actually, and then we continued with that first aspect, as I said, like streamlining the funding process and
Mm-hmm.
getting that like mainly with the focus on the donors. So people that donate money, like we have quite a lot of people in the world actually that love to do that. And
Hmm.
what if we can just make sure that most of that money goes directly to the scientists and increase that efficiency
Right.
of the donors' funds? And so we built some simple smart contracts, allowing
Hmm.
users through our simple user interface to donate money and without paying tens of dollars of gas fees.
Right.
And we did that actually by going on the CK Sync era network.
Hmm.
For the people that are not familiar with that, it uses some relatively new consensus mechanism. Well, it's all very technical, but with zero knowledge rollups, it allows us to have very cheap gas fees as well.
Right.
So, and a donation of let's say $10 would only be like 3 to 4 cents of gas fees.
Right.
And so we try to, of course, for donation 3 to 4 cents to me seems or to us it seems quite doable, and we want to focus on that aspect as well. So we not only want to take into account the investors that want to invest in certain research projects, but also people that want to be close to the scientists, that want
Hmm.
to um, be like early adopters of this new approach to funding scientific
Yeah.
research.
And I really like what the approach you've taken, and I think it's a very fundamental piece to solve the problem of decentralized science at large, and especially the fact that you have an avenue for like low cost, low value donations, which really, really add up to a lot of funds. Now, I think that over time, what you're going to be faced with is wanting to be able to use those funds that you like receive with throughout the larger ecosystem, meaning both like other DeSci projects and other places where the liquidity is. And I think that that's where like thinking about like an ecosystem play is very important because you are able to be a source of funding and sort of place that funding elsewhere and throughout the DeSci stack, which is going to give you because at the end of the day, if you think about it, like well, if the researcher gets the funds, um, at some point there's going to be more services that like cater to researchers and to communities. So there's a lot more future in thinking about how your community fits throughout the larger ecosystem, and that can include having the whole governance stack be on layer two, zero knowledge, so that you keep a low gas environment, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So building an ecosystem is vital. We want to be indeed the, although weird to say, the central point of people that do research in personalized medicine to come up and like pr- propose a change in our ecosystem, or just provide their project through our website, and then yeah, make it as permissionless as possible for everyone to participate. And yeah, creating an ecosystem is easier said than done. But I think that
Right.
we are doing a great, yeah, great stuff to get there.
Yeah, what I always say is that it takes a village, right? And like the more that you think of yourself as part of the ecosystem, the easier your job becomes because you can focus more and more on what you actually want to be doing. And you can just let people who are very, very interested in other parts, such as like, for example, solving governance or things like that, help because like I think this ecosystem needs a lot more of people helping each other because that lets people like you do less work and put that work in places where it hasn't been put before. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, so I think it's all comes back to to incentivizing people. So one feature that we have added to our on-chain governance as well is
Mhm.
something that we call the participation token. So this token is well, as it says, you get it once you participate in creating proposals and voting on those proposals. And
Mhm.
with this token, you could it's not tradable. You can just hold it, but in the future, we would like to give that benefits so that it actually incentivizes users to
Right.
participate in governance. And I see often with our research, we saw that a lot of DAOs are struggling with the participation in their governance. May it be on chain, may it be snapshot.
Right.
So that is kind of how we try to tackle that. So as you know, we don't have a tradable token deployed yet.
Mhm.
We still want to build our community further. We want to have our app tested by our community, and as that is still in development, we have been thinking about the tokenomics of our token, and we call it the DeSci token, so SCI. And this token is tradable, as I said. It is a governance token, so you can stake it and through our platform. And once you stake it, you get voting power. And with this voting power, you can vote on operational or DAO related operations, like where our funding goes to. And
Mhm.
yeah, with this system, so we call it this dual token system. So with the side token and the participation token, we really hope to incentivize the investors, scientists, donors, and other parties are that want to be part of decentralized science.
Yeah, that's really cool. Look, and I'm really excited to see more experiments in different types of governance come on. We have tried a lot of different things, and it's an ongoing science. And like, I think that as the field matures, there's going to be a lot more um, like structured knowledge to be had about these things. But we are, like, frankly, in the wild west of incentive design. And I think that by trying and trying over and over again, we're going to figure out what's the best way to grow these incentives mechanisms that conceptually we all sort of share, but admittedly, it's been like no one has a real answer so far to these questions, even
Yeah.
in real life, which isn't like this is a civilization wide problem because nobody really knows how to govern a group of people. And like the only way we're gonna figure out is by basically trying everything at the same time, right? So I think
Yeah.
that that's the most important part.
I agree. Yeah, so it is to some degree we have a lot of proven or already proven features in our application. We also, indeed, as I said, the participation token is an experimental part. Does this actually later down the road incentivize people more to participate? Are the incentives enough? And we build it in such a way that we can adjust some of those parameters. But
Right.
yeah, if the problem that we currently have with people that are in the crypto space is like I personally think that there's too much money in the meme coin or meme part of crypto, and we just need more people that are passionate about actually achieving something with blockchain technology rather than
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
but to counter what you're saying, because I like to do stand-up comedy sometimes, right? And there's sometimes that your jokes really don't go over well, and I had a friend who always sort of like was blaming the audience. It's like, oh, these guys don't get my jokes. They're just not sophisticated enough, right?
Oh.
But I think that's missing the point a little bit, because the reason why I believe, and I have the same problem, because like we're all building these super interesting things, and then meme coins just take the day over. And I feel like if we learn to sort of like really speak to the real necessities that need to be solved with blockchain, we're going to find that correct incentive design is like a nuclear reactor. Like there's no incentive designs that kind of work. They either like totally 100% break the world or don't. And it's like that binary aspect is sort of hard to grasp until you've experienced it once. And then the thing is how to design for that in around your objective, right? Which is a big task, and it's a cool one to have also, and but it takes a village even.
Yeah, it's indeed, as you said, we most people that are building projects, they don't know how certain incentives play out, especially on a larger scale. So on paper, a lot of incentive systems, the ones that we are building as well, can look very, very promising. But yeah, we have to see with how Poseidon DAO grows, and if those incentives actually have an effect on people in DeSci, the scientists, the crypto fanatics.
Right.
So yeah, we have to see.
Yeah, but the cool thing is that it's an iterative process, right? As you, and also it gets easier and easier because, like I said earlier, every time some infrastructure comes in line, for example, the Frentech system kind of works. It works, and it would be easy to implement something like that over Poseidon DAO, where it's like the groups that you're funding have um, this sort of function where you can create a chat room with the scientist so that you can talk with him and keep updated with it, this stuff. And that's things that others have solved for you, which you can just copy and paste over to your project, because your project is about personalized medicine. It's not about any of the tools that you're using. So if you keep your eyes open as more things and more interesting features come online, the space, and especially, for example, things like Lens Protocol have solved really hard problems for the space, and like have put their app into thousands of people, which you can leverage tomorrow. And for example, if you get an account for Poseidon DAO on Lens, you would be able to become one of the most prominent accounts within a month, because there's fewer people there, so you have more opportunities to be heard. So these things are coming online for you. It's about understanding them and leveraging them as much as you can.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. I haven't we haven't got a chance to use Lens Protocol. We did see, and this is also from our side as a scientist, that for example Mastodon could be a good place for us as well, as a lot of scientists
Hmm.
they migrated from Twitter to Mastodon. So yeah, that might be Lens Protocol might be something we can add to our socials as well, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, as a DAO, you are like platform agnostic, and the future is multi-chain in all aspects, in the sense that like all of the social media apps are going to be intermingling, and it's about growing your presence in those platforms. And again, under like it makes your job so much easier, because you look around and a lot of these problems are being solved, and within a year it's going to be like twice the amount of services over and over, and it's just starting to really come in line. And that's something that, for example, people who are like using other systems like Solaners, things like that, don't kind of like appreciate the amount of middleware and like interoperable services that create that will create the app of tomorrow, right? And it's cool you have a fast chain, but do you have all the features that the top apps will be using? Well, only if you're near the layer one, right?
Yeah. Yeah, those are very interesting points. Yeah.
Well, do you have any what plans do you have for the future for the next say 3 months? And then we can sort of take some questions from the chat if there are any, and then close off the interview. How about that?
Sounds great. So, what are we? So we are currently working on, as I said, those smart contracts on the on-chain governance and staking are currently being developed.
Mm-hmm.
So the backend is one thing, and as I said before, we really want to make it easy for people to use our software, as crypto related software or crypto in general can be quite overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
We ask our our the elderly in our family if they can actually use our software
Right.
and they understand what we are trying to do. So that is a challenge on its own when it comes to front end development, that we can have a nice user interface and user experience for for everyone to understand and find their way in. So that will be our primary goal. Then our secondary goal, which after development will turn into a primary goal, is to collect like collect funds for that allows us to grow our community, that allows us to continue development, and those are our two main goals.
That's really cool. Will you be attending any of the Ethereum events this year? Do you have any events planned?
Well, yeah. So as I said, I'm a fourth year PhD student, so we are having a hard time. I'm quite a lot in the lab, um, and I have to take care of of the cultures of this cell culture. So it is quite tough for me to just halt that work.
Right.
But we will do our best to attend some of these events. But yeah, we have to see how that works
That's
out with
really
our
cool.
schedule.
Well, if anything, we can talk with the DeSci World team and maybe bring around some of the materials that you got to our events throughout the year. And that could be one of the things that we do to help further some of these projects. We have to still talk about it internally, but I see Carolyn is here, so maybe we can do that. And yeah, I would like to let people from the audience ask questions. If you guys are interested, you can raise your hands. Otherwise, we'll let our friends at PoSciDonDAO go. I know it's tough to face the cat is early or late in the afternoon. um. Well, it seems there are.
Does it look like there's any questions? I haven't got any responses, any requests
Nope.
to come up.
Nope. Do you have any questions, Josh?
Yeah, so you mentioned that you're sort of busy with your PhD and such. So can you give us a little bit of just a little bit of background? I know that you're the founder or co-founder, and you're sat next to your other founder or co-founder. Would you be able to give us just a bit of breakdown of like what the team internally looks like? Just it's always interesting, I find, to know a little bit more about the DeSci projects themselves, about the internals, and sort of see what sort of structures you guys have, what resources you guys have, just out of interest in terms of comparison for ourselves and such.
Yeah, so our team is is mainly just the two co-founders. We do have an advisor that comes in every now and then. That has some experiences with setting up Web3 related projects. I'm just mainly doing the development, and my co-founder is mainly working on the creative, our brand, and building up our community. And yeah, so for me, on the PhD level, of course, yeah, personalized medicine is also the center of my PhD, and I work with it's a combination of some disciplines. So it's oncology and virology, and also a little bit of immunology actually. And with those domains, in a nutshell, what I do is we have these advanced three-dimensional cell cultures. The very specific name for that is organoids. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but with these pancreatic cancer organoids, we test these cultures for the effectivity of viruses that can kill cancer cells. So, or in other words, cancer killing viruses. And a more technical term for that is oncolytic viruses. So, with these oncolytic viruses, every culture, every 3D culture responds differently to each of these cancer killing viruses. So yeah, we try to figure out by looking at the genotype, or like the genetic background of these cultures, why one responds better than the other, and if they respond to one virus better than the other or not, or just a resistant culture to treatment at all. So that is kind of the scope of my PhD. And yeah, that is just looking at the genetic background of patient-derived culture is one of the core topics of personalized medicine. And as the co-founder and I are have been delving in these topics for the past 4 to 6 years. This the main reason why we focused on personalized medicine, also for PoSciDonDAO, of course. So the in-house expertise regarding personalized medicine is there. And then, as I said before, the development and creating a brand and the marketing aspect of PoSciDonDAO, those are all been skills that have been acquired outside of our PhD trajectory.
Yeah, it's something that we sort of are trying to balance internally at DeSci World. Like, so luckily, I say luckily, I'm not a researcher, right? Like, I don't have the qualifications that a lot of people in DeSci do have, and so I've kind of been doing business for many years, and so I kind of have the skill set, I suppose, to do some of those more touchy-feely things, as we call it internally to DeSci World. But the research itself is obviously a core part of every DeSci project, and so there's often this sort of dichotomy where it's like, right, you want the co-founders or the founding team, or just a large portion of the team, to have that pedigree, in particular in the research aspects. But then, if, for example, in your case, you need to outsource the business acumen almost to marketers, to business development people. And I'm sort of anticipating, in personally, it's something I actually thought about setting up as a business idea even a couple of years ago, is this kind of outsourcing DAO for marketing within DeSci. And that is actually in some ways what inspired DeSci World as it is today, to do things like this, to have the DeSci.world dashboard. Obviously, we have our other platform coming, but these sort of tools that might actually help the scientists do the things that they're not used to, which is selling, which is not a thing that many people will enjoy. Certainly not many scientists are very good at, but it is unfortunately in this space an essential part of the mix. And so I think getting that right is something that a lot of DeSci projects are having to contend with, and it sounds like you are also. So also very happy to assist on that. In private, we can talk about if you need some connections or anything in the design space or marketing space, or if you need any assistance on that, we're always here to help on that, because that is a trend, right? Is you either have a DeSci project with good business acumen, and then there's some kind of questions about their academic rigor, or you have the academics who launch a DeSci project and then they sort of don't really know how to quote unquote shill. So it's an interesting thing, but it's good to sort of hear a little bit more about the team and know that you guys are what you would call pure research, which is great because that's actually the strong foundations that I think DeSci needs in order to succeed is that scientific rigor.
Yeah, I agree that like just that opportunity for us to expand on the marketing and the business development, that will be really appreciated. Yeah, I wish we would have more of that during our studies. You know, we learn all the
Right.
ins and outs of being a scientist, but everything around it, we just don't. Even though we have some optional courses to take, none of that was an option. So yeah, talking about it will be fantastic. Yes.
Very true. I mean, one of these things I've really been trying to push the last year and nearly 2 years now, blimey, it's been a while, is this concept of the scientist entrepreneur, which is sort of a redefinition of what it means to be scientist, right? And there's a kind of conflict here with, do you want someone whose brain is absolutely brilliant to be thinking about the quote the bullshit, I suppose, of sales, right? Probably you don't. If you want to get the best out of them, you probably don't want them to be thinking about marketing, sales, etc. But at the same time, if a scientist is capable of learning these skills, which they are because they've got good minds, ultimately these skills are not the most difficult. If they are able to do that, then they can actually leverage their research and their science and their activities in their own way, and that's really empowering. And I think DeSci is sort of the collectivization of that spirit of this scientist entrepreneur, in the sense of, well, you guys come to this DAO and do the marketing for us, and we'll do our science, and we can be independent as a collective rather than, for example, having to be tied to an institution who does all of the marketing for you. And that's really where the middlemen of the institutions make all of their money is, you are a scientist, you do your paper, but we'll publish it, we'll get you out there, we'll give you the connections, we'll give you the funding. And that's kind of the trap that everybody's in. So I think this scientist entrepreneur thing is a really important concept, which some scientists I know are actually quite keen to get involved in that aspect of it. Others are just like, nah, keep me away from that. I just want to do my work.
Yeah.
And so I think the DAO is a great opportunity to explore that.
Yeah, and I think we should also what we experience as well when you talk about, especially in maybe just our environment, but like when you talk about going outside of academia or indeed following that entrepreneur path within academia, some people look down to that, and that also doesn't really incentivize people to talk about it or to but if people don't talk about it, then I don't know who else is a science entrepreneur within the institute or within the department. So I hope that, as you said, like if you have multiple DAOs with science entrepreneurs, that it will kind of create this environment where it's okay to not always talk about the hardcore parts of science, but also the entrepreneur path and business development and everything around it. Yeah, but hopefully we can be a part of that change as well.
Yeah, it's certainly a change that you can pretty much observe if you look at Silicon Valley, right? Ultimately, the technologists working on, in particular, like deep tech, they are simultaneously researchers and scientists in a way, and also entrepreneurs. And thus, if you look at the biggest superstars in our society today, Elon Musk, your Sam Altmans, like these people are the reason that these people are the sort of top thought of as the top people is because they are simultaneously smart and working on innovative science, I suppose, but also they're good at selling. And it is, in my opinion, a catch-22, right? You want scientists to have the autonomy to go and do the science they want, so they're not captured. But at the same time, the people at the top who are simultaneously smart, powerful, and rich, it presents this sort of, I don't know, culture that's a bit unsavory. But yeah, I think it's going to be something that is going to be a lot more in the public eye is scientists making money, especially with the help of DeSci, for better or worse. Just probably something that will happen, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Let's hope that how the changes that Silicon Valley underwent, like I hope that is going to happen for the scientists as well through DeSci, as you said. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one concern with that is if you look at what happened to San Francisco in the process, like California in general in the process.
Yeah.
We've got to protect against that.
Yeah, I've been there once, but it's been a while ago. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, look, mate, it was great to meet you. Great to chat, Carlos. Thank you so much for jumping in and filling in for Jelani. We'll be back next week, I think.
My pleasure.
Can't remember who it's with, but I think Jelani will be back next week. Carlos, any last words? Final ones?
No, it's great. It's great to have talked to you. Feel free to reach out, and I hope that there's a lot more to come in the future as we sort of grow this idea together.
Yeah, likewise. It was a blast to be here, to answer your questions and to be in contact with you guys. We will keep building our app, building our application, building our community. Let's make the best of it.
Wonderful. Yeah, and feel free to reach out if you ever want to chat or anything, want any assistance with anything. We're always here. And thanks everyone for listening. If you have any questions for myself, Carlos, or Poseidon, feel free to message us. Otherwise, we'll see you next week. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Have a good day. Bye bye.